Welcome back to Leaders HQ, the channel where we unpack what it really means to lead and inspire. In today's video, I'm showcasing a new fictional story that I'm writing entitled The Campaign. It's a story about a campaign manager named Robert who is brand new to the campaign and he's in over his head. Robert learns leadership through trial and error. Let me know what you think of the story in the comments below. Let's begin. Imagine stepping into a leadership role where the odds feel stacked against you. That was Robert's reality. A family man with a wife and 2 kids, he had a commitment to balance work and home life. But now he was about to face the daunting task of leading a group of volunteers through a high-stakes campaign. And the team he inherited? They were talented but burnt out, carrying scars from a rough experience under their previous leader, Maurice. Maurice was known for pushing his team relentlessly to the point of exhaustion, often sidelining the very people who made success possible. For Robert, winning them over wasn't going to be easy. In one of his first meetings, Robert came face to face with the diverse personalities he'd be managing. Samantha, the social media manager, was a bit wary. She put her heart into the last campaign, only to be overloaded with work and barely recognized for her efforts. Alex, who managed events, was cautious with his time, having felt pressured to work longer hours in the past. Carlos, the go-to fundraising guy, loved his work but was approaching burnout. And then there was Jake, who had a knack for connecting with people but was now hesitant to dive back in after his own frustrating experiences. As the meeting began, Robert's nerves set in. He felt the weight of responsibility and the looming question, "Am I ready for this?" He wasn't a seasoned political strategist. He hadn't cycled through campaign after campaign. He hadn't seen firsthand how small team efforts translated to big wins. And yet, here he was, expected to lead. The self-doubt was loud, with thoughts like, "Can I actually pull this off?" And, "Will they see me as a fraud?" Despite his inner struggle, Robert knew he had to focus on his team's strengths. He decided to open by acknowledging their past hard work and highlighting their accomplishments. He encouraged each person to share stories from the last campaign, listening closely. Samantha recounted her social media wins and the hurdles she faced managing it alone. Jake shared about the high-level donors he'd engaged, and Carlos described the exhausting demands of fundraising. With each story, Robert gained valuable insight into their experiences and, more importantly, into what they needed from him as a leader. But despite his positive approach, Robert could sense a lingering doubt in the room. While the volunteers were engaged, they weren't quite ready to buy into his leadership yet. They were used to Maurice, a strong, results-focused leader who knew how to get things done. In Robert, they sensed something different, a kind of hesitation, perhaps even reluctance. They wondered if he had what it took to make tough calls and move the campaign forward. Robert's self-doubt started creeping in again, and he realized that he was missing something crucial: an understanding of his own influence. He knew he couldn't just mimic Maurice's style, but he didn't yet know what his style would be. He felt a gap, a void where confidence and experience should have been. This was his leadership gap, a realization that he lacked the clear, confident presence his team was accustomed to. And more than that, he knew he needed to address it quickly if he was going to gain their respect and trust. In the days that followed, Robert found himself obsessing over his insecurities. He started comparing himself to Maurice, wondering if he'd ever be able to meet the team's expectations. His mind was clouded with self-doubt, but he also felt a subtle shift in perspective. As he considered the team's stories and struggles, he realized that his role wasn't just about being an authority figure. It was about becoming a leader who truly valued and uplifted his people. Then came his aha moment. During a quiet one-on-one meeting with Carlos, Robert noticed something powerful. Carlos spoke about his exhaustion from constant fundraising and his fear of burnout. As Robert listened, he had a flash of insight. His influence didn't need to come from being the loudest or the most experienced. It could come from being the most supportive, from empowering each team member in their individual roles. Robert realized that his leadership gap could be filled by fostering trust and showing his team that he valued their well-being as much as their work. Fueled by this insight, Robert decided to take a new approach. He set up regular check-ins with each volunteer, not just to talk about campaign goals, but to understand their motivations, frustrations, and aspirations. For Alex, he made it clear that he would respect time boundaries and acknowledge his hard work publicly. With Samantha, he talked through realistic goals for social media engagement to avoid overwhelming her. He encouraged Carlos to set limits and reassured him that the team would support his work so he wouldn't feel like he was carrying the load alone. This gradual shift was profound. One-on-one, Robert's influence began to take root. Jake, who was initially hesitant to commit, started coming in for extra hours, seeing Robert's dedication and feeling a sense of renewed purpose. Samantha, who once considered leaving the team, started putting in extra effort on social media, inspired by the supportive environment Robert was fostering. Alex, the logistics expert, began sharing new ideas for events, confident that Robert would respect his time and input. And Carlos, the fundraiser, stopped feeling like he had to do it all and could finally take a breath, knowing Robert had his back. Meeting after meeting, the team became more unified, energized, and motivated. They weren't just following Robert's orders, they were rallying around him because they felt respected and valued. In the process, Robert's influence grew, not from his title, but from the trust he had built. And as this influence deepened, Robert finally recognized the unique value he brought to the table. He wasn't Maurice, and he didn't need to be. His own style of leadership, grounded in empathy and listening, was exactly what this team needed to heal and thrive. Of course, Robert's self-doubt didn't disappear overnight. But now, when those feelings crept up, he reminded himself that his value wasn't about how much he knew or how many campaigns he'd led before. His strength was in his willingness to learn, to adapt, and to grow alongside his team. And that was a leadership journey worth embracing. So, what can we learn from Robert's experience? True influence isn't about being the most experienced or the most assertive. It's about understanding your team, acknowledging their struggles, and building a foundation of trust. Influence isn't about the loudest voice in the room. It's about creating an environment where others feel heard and valued. Robert's story shows us that sometimes the best leaders are the ones who listen first, who empower others, and who build up the people around them. Thanks for watching Leaders HQ. If Robert's story inspired you, hit that subscribe button and join us for more insights on leadership. Let us know in the comments, what's one way you're planning to close your own leadership gap? Stay tuned for our next video, where we'll explore how leaders can overcome self-doubt and step into their influence. Until next time, keep leading with purpose.